The moment he heard what they said, he nearly dropped the sandwich. No one knew who he really was. He looked like just another tired customer in a hoodie, waiting for a quick bite at a local diner. But the man standing quietly in line was actually the owner, and he was on a mission. What he overheard two cashiers say next would change everything. This isn't just a story about a sandwich. It's about what happens when truth, loyalty, and a hidden identity collide in one unforgettable moment. The man's name was Marcus Reed, a quiet powerhouse in the restaurant world and the proud owner of a small, growing chain of diners. He wasn't flashy. No expensive watches, no giant mansions. He was the kind of man who still remembered what it felt like to flip burgers on the night shift and mop floors after closing. His success didn't come from luck. It came from hustle, grit, and an unshakable belief in people. Marcus had built his business from the ground up, starting with one small, struggling location on the edge of town. He poured everything into it: time, money, sweat, and heart. And slowly it grew. One location turned into 2, then 3, then 5. His diners weren't just places to eat. They were places where people felt at home, where a hot cup of coffee and a kind smile meant something. But recently, something didn't feel right. The numbers were still okay, but Marcus was seeing red flags everywhere. Online reviews had taken a sharp turn. Regulars were complaining, not about the food, but about the service. Customers said staff were rude, orders were wrong. Some said they felt unwelcome or ignored. Worse, a few hinted at something even more serious: unfair treatment based on race or appearance. Marcus took it personally. He tried talking to his managers. "What's going on?" he asked. "Is everything okay with the team?" But the answers always felt too easy. "Oh, just a few bad days. The customers are just being picky." "Nothing to worry about, boss." That wasn't good enough. Marcus had always prided himself on running a business that cared about customers, cared about staff, cared about doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. If something was going wrong, he needed to know firsthand. So he made a bold decision. He would go undercover. No cameras, no heads up to his team. Just him, dressed like any other customer. He pulled on an old hoodie from his college days, a pair of faded jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He left his luxury car in the garage and borrowed his nephew's beat-up sedan. No one would recognize him like this. He even skipped shaving to really blend in. On a chilly Monday afternoon, Marcus walked into his flagship diner, the original one, the heart of his entire brand. He didn't greet the staff. He didn't pull rank. He just stepped inside, quietly, like any other hungry customer looking for a quick bite. No entourage, no name tag, no clues, just a man with a purpose. To uncover the truth, one order at a time. What he was about to discover would shake him to the core. Marcus waited in line like everyone else. No special treatment, no one rushing to greet him, and that was exactly what he wanted, to blend in, to see what an everyday customer really experienced. The diner looked the same on the outside. The signature red booths, the chalkboard menu, the buzz of the kitchen, all familiar. But something felt off. The warmth that once filled the space was missing. The smiles, the laughter, the sense of welcome. Gone. In its place was a tension he couldn't quite describe, cold, rushed, and distant. When he reached the counter, he gave a polite nod and ordered a simple meal, a turkey sandwich, a small bag of chips, and a soda. It was the kind of order he used to eat when he worked the grill himself back in the early days. The cashier barely looked at him. Her tone was flat, robotic. "That's $9.25, she said without even a hint of friendliness. Marcus handed her a $10 bill and waited. She slapped the change onto the counter without a word, eyes already on the next person in line. He quietly took his tray and found a seat near the counter, not too close to be noticed, but close enough to listen and observe. He watched the staff. He watched how they spoke to customers, and that's when it happened. He heard it. Two cashiers, the one who had taken his order and another standing beside her, began chatting in hushed tones. But they weren't being nearly as quiet as they thought. One of them glanced in his direction and muttered, "Another one of them." Marcus's stomach dropped. The other cashier chuckled. "Yeah, bet he'll leave no tip and make a mess." "They always do." Marcus froze, mid-sip of his drink. They always do? Did she just say that? He stared down at his sandwich, suddenly not hungry. His mind raced, his heart pounding. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. And yet, he had. Clear as day. Right there in the middle of his own restaurant. It wasn't just a rude comment. It wasn't just bad service. It was racism, blatant, casual, and completely unbothered. These were the people he trusted to represent his brand, to serve his community. And they were standing just feet away from him, stereotyping a customer. Him, because of the color of his skin. He wondered how many others had heard that kind of talk, how many had walked out feeling disrespected, judged, or unwelcome. Marcus wasn't just shocked, he was heartbroken. But more than that, he was ready. What happened next would not only change the fate of this diner, it would send a message no one would forget. Marcus sat there, stunned. His eyes stayed fixed on the counter, but his mind was spinning in 100 directions. The sounds of the diner faded into the background, the clatter of plates, the soft chatter of customers, even the sizzle from the kitchen, all drowned out by the sharp sting of what he had just heard. He had faced racism before. It wasn't new to him. He remembered being followed around in stores as a teenager. He remembered having to work twice as hard to prove himself in business meetings, where he was the only black man at the table. He'd even dealt with the occasional rude customer who thought he didn't look like the owner. But this was something else. This was happening inside the walls he built, inside the business he created from nothing. These weren't random strangers. These were his employees, people he hired, trained, and trusted to carry out his vision, a vision rooted in respect, dignity, and community. His chest tightened. He slowly scanned the room, taking in every face. A young Latino family laughing quietly at their booth. An older white couple sharing a slice of pie. 2 college kids, likely Asian American, doing homework at the counter. And a black woman sitting alone by the window, sipping coffee and checking her phone. Every one of them had come here for a simple meal. To eat, relax, feel welcome. Had they all been treated fairly? Or were they silently judged, mocked behind their backs, made to feel small, just like he had been moments ago? It was a gut punch. He looked down at the sandwich on his tray. He hadn't touched it. He didn't think he could. His appetite was gone, replaced by a growing anger. Not the kind that explodes, but the kind that simmers deep, steady, and determined. This wasn't just a case of rude staff. This was a deeper rot, a sickness in the culture that had slipped in quietly, unnoticed, or worse, ignored. And now it was poisoning everything he had worked for. He thought about the good employees, the ones who showed up on time, treated customers like family, believed in the mission. How many of them had been forced to bite their tongues, to stay silent while others poisoned the air? He couldn't let it continue. Right then and there, Marcus made a decision. He would not stay silent. He wouldn't be just another face in the crowd walking out and shaking his head. He wasn't just a customer, he was the boss. And it was time to remind everyone exactly who he was and what he stood for. The next few moments would be uncomfortable, confrontational, maybe even explosive. But they would also be necessary, because this wasn't just about a sandwich anymore. Marcus stood up slowly, pushing back his chair with quiet purpose. Every step he took toward the counter felt heavier than the last, not because he was nervous, but because he understood the weight of what was about to happen. This wasn't just about disciplining a couple of employees. This was about protecting the heart of his business and sending a message that couldn't be ignored. The 2 cashiers behind the counter were still chatting, oblivious. They looked bored, maybe even annoyed, as if the day was dragging longer than usual. They didn't recognize him, not in that hoodie, not with the cap pulled low, until he took it off. As Marcus reached the counter, he pulled the baseball cap from his head and raised his chin. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, focused. The moment they got a clear look at him, their expressions changed instantly. First came confusion, then shock, then panic. One of the cashiers blinked. "Wait! Is that—" Marcus didn't wait for her to finish. "You know what's funny?" he said, his voice even, steady but carrying an unmistakable edge. "I started this diner with a dream to create jobs. To build a place where people from every background felt welcome. A fresh start, a warm meal, a little piece of home. The second cashier's mouth dropped open. The first one stammered, her voice shaky now. "What, wait, you're the owner?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I'm the owner. Marcus Reed." Dead silence fell over the front counter. Even a few customers nearby had stopped chewing, sensing something big was happening. The energy in the room shifted, thick with tension and anticipation. Marcus continued, calm but firm. "And I heard everything." He looked directly at both of them. The jokes, the comments, the assumptions, the racism. The second cashier tried to smile, tried to brush it off. "Oh, that wasn't serious. We were just—" He held up his hand. "Save it. I didn't come here for excuses. I didn't come here to argue. I came here to see the truth with my own eyes. And now I have." Right then, the kitchen door swung open, and the shift manager, a stocky man named Dave, stepped out, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked around, confused. "Hey, what's going on out here?" Marcus turned to him slowly. "What's going on," he said, "is that two members of your front staff were just overheard making racist remarks about a customer. That customer being me." Dave looked stunned. "Wait, what? Marcus? You're here?" "Yes, I'm here. I've been here," Marcus said. "Long enough to hear how things really go down when no one's watching?" He pointed at the two cashiers. "These two? They're done. Fired. Today," the first cashier gasped. "But, sir, we didn't mean—" Marcus didn't raise his voice, but his tone was unshakable. "You meant it. You said it. And I won't tolerate that. In my business. Not today, not ever." Dave stepped forward, still visibly nervous. "Marcus, hold on a second. I'm sure we can talk about this in the back." "No buts, Dave," Marcus cut in. "This happened on your shift, under your watch. If this is the culture you've allowed to grow here, then we need to have a serious conversation. Now." Everyone in the diner was paying attention. Customers glanced at each other, whispering. Phones were starting to come out. Someone might have even started recording. But Marcus didn't care. He wasn't putting on a show. He was taking a stand. He turned back to the stunned employees. "You think a customer walks in here and doesn't deserve respect because of the color of their skin? You think you can laugh about that behind the counter and still wear my company's name on your uniform?" He shook his head slowly. "You're wrong. This diner is built on values. Real ones. And if you don't live those values, you don't work here." One of the young employees began to tear up, trying to apologize again, but Marcus wasn't moved. An apology after getting caught isn't accountability. Real accountability is when you don't say it in the first place. Dave stood there, hands on his hips, clearly trying to decide whether to defend his staff or his boss. Marcus didn't give him the chance. "I want them off the clock now. Final checks by the end of the day. And starting tomorrow, we're auditing every single location. I'm not letting this slide at any of my diners." The room stayed quiet, as the two cashiers slowly stepped away from the register. One looked angry, the other looked ashamed, but neither said a word. As they left, Marcus took a deep breath. He turned to the rest of the staff. Some were peeking out from the kitchen. Others froze mid-task. "Let me make something clear to the rest of you," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "If you work here, you treat every single person who walks through those doors with dignity. Doesn't matter what they look like, where they're from, or how much money they've got in their pocket." He paused. "We don't serve food with hate. We serve food with heart. That's why we're here. And that's the standard, not a request." He looked around one last time, eyes settling on Dave. "Come find me in the office after your shift. We've got some things to talk about." With that, Marcus picked up his untouched tray and walked toward the door. As he stepped outside, the cold air hit his face, but it felt cleaner, clearer. Because sometimes you don't fix a problem by talking about it. Sometimes you fix it by standing up and showing who's really in charge. Marcus didn't stop there. What happened at his flagship diner was a wake-up call, not just for that location, but for his entire business. And Marcus wasn't the kind of man to put out one fire and pretend everything else was fine. No, this wasn't going to be a quick fix. Over the next week, he got to work. Marcus launched a full review of every single location he owned. No shortcuts, no assumptions. He visited each diner, sometimes in disguise, sometimes as himself, and spent time talking directly with the people who mattered most, the staff and the customers. He held private interviews with employees at all levels, the dishwashers, the line cooks, the servers. He asked real questions. How do you feel working here? Have you ever seen or experienced discrimination? Do you feel respected? He listened, and what he heard was eye-opening. Some employees described a healthy, supportive environment, but others, especially in certain locations, admitted they had seen or experienced subtle racism, bullying, or favoritism. A few said they didn't speak up because they didn't think anyone would care. Marcus made it clear. He cared. He dug into customer reviews, past complaints, and even security footage where appropriate. He wanted the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. Because as he'd learned, problems don't go away just because you close your eyes. And then he made changes, big ones. First, he retrained every single employee, top to bottom. Not just a basic orientation session, but a comprehensive workshop that covered workplace ethics, anti-discrimination policy, customer service standards, and real-life examples. It wasn't just about reading slides. It was about real conversations, real reflection, and setting new expectations. Second, he installed an anonymous reporting system across all locations. Anyone, employee or customer, could report mistreatment, harassment, or unethical behavior without fear of backlash. Every report would go directly to Marcus and a newly assembled review board. Third, he upgraded his diversity and inclusion training, bringing in outside experts to lead quarterly sessions. And he promoted several team members of color into leadership positions, not just as a symbolic gesture, but because they had earned it and deserved to be seen. And most importantly, he made one thing very clear to everyone. Respect is not optional. It didn't matter how fast someone could flip a burger or how many years they'd worked the register. If they couldn't treat customers and co-workers with dignity, there was no place for them in his company. But Marcus didn't keep this all behind closed doors. He went public. He shared his story, the undercover visit, the heartbreaking comments, the confrontation and everything that followed in a powerful online video, not to shame anyone, not to chase clout, but to send a message to other business owners. Leadership isn't just about profit. It's about presence. Sometimes, he said in the video, you've got to put on a hoodie and walk into your own business like a stranger. Because that's how you find the truth. He posted the video across his company's social media pages. Within days, it went viral. Millions of views, thousands of shares, comments poured in from all over the world, from customers, business leaders, employees, and everyday people. Many praised his courage, his integrity, and his commitment to change. Some wrote, "We need more bosses like this. This is what leadership looks like." He didn't just talk, he took action. Others even shared their own experiences with racism in restaurants and workplaces, saying that Marcus's story gave them hope that change is possible. The story made national headlines. Marcus was invited onto talk shows, news programs, and podcasts, but he stayed grounded. When asked how he felt about all the attention, Marcus simply said, "This isn't about me. It's about doing what's right. Every customer deserves to feel respected. Every worker deserves to feel safe. That's the standard, not the exception." Back at the flagship diner, things were different now. There was a new energy, warmer, more respectful, more alive. Staff greeted customers with real smiles. Managers took time to listen, and people noticed. Customers who had once stayed away began coming back. Marcus had restored what mattered most, the soul of his business. And that turkey sandwich he ordered that day? He never did eat it. It sat untouched on the tray, the soda gone flat, the chips still in the bag, because sometimes what you overhear is more powerful than what you ordered. And sometimes doing the right thing doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence, reflection, and then the courage to change everything. Don't forget to subscribe my channel.